You're good to go, Mayor.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody. It is 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March 23rd. I will call to order the 2071st meeting of the City College Place City Council. Will the clerk please take roll call?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Bobbitt.
Present.
Councilmember Cleveland.
Present.
Councilmember Peterson.
Present.
Councilmember Nyhagen.
Present.
Councilmember Selby.
Present.
Councilmember Sherman.
Present.
Councilmember Trope.
Present.
And of course, we have Mayor Hernandez, also City Attorney Ree Colwell, Administrator Mike Rizzatello, Finance Director Brian Carlton, Police Chief Troy Tamaris, Community Development Director John Rickard, myself, City Clerk, and Deputy Clerk Carolyn Holm for her final meeting. And we do have a quorum. You're good to go.
Wonderful, thank you. Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Nyhagen, could I ask you to please get us started with a few words?
Absolutely. Shall we pray? Our dear Heavenly Father, how thankful we are that we can come to you and ask you to help us with the decisions that we make tonight, that they will be made according to your will and for the good of the city. We thank you that the mayor can handle this, and each one of us are here to serve our city. And Father, I also pray for those that are suffering from this virus, that you will watch over them and keep them in your loving care. And we give you the praise and thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Ms. Nyhagen. Okay, it is now time for public comment. Lisa, did we have anybody request to speak?
We did not.
Okay, great. Then we're going to just move on to consent agenda. It consists of the agenda for today, March 23rd, 2021, the council minutes from March 9th, 2021. We want to confirm the appointments to the advisory commissions and the January 2021 check register and financial report. Are there any items that the council would like to have removed from the consent agenda at this time? I don't see any.
Councilwoman Nyhagen, I move with it.
Hold it.
Can you hear me?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Nyhagen, I move we approve the consent agenda.
This is Heather. I'll second.
Wonderful. All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The motion is passed. Thank you. And then we're going to move on to item number 3, which is a presentation by Chief Tamaris regarding the 2020 bias report.
Okay. All right, Council, Mayor, here we go. Here's the 2020 bias report. This is similar to the ones this is my 4th presentation on the bias report since I've been your police chief. And I think each year we get a little bit better at recording data and fine tuning it. So I'm excited to share it with you. So as you know, why do we do the bias report? Because we're required to by RCW, but I want you to know that I do go above and beyond. We go past the traffic stops and we actually publish our report, which is pretty rare for most law enforcement agencies. But I like to be able to do that. We've been doing it since I arrived here in 2017, and I think it's a good way to show our community what we're doing out there. So RCW 43-101, 410, law enforcement agencies shall adopt a written policy designed to condemn and prevent racial profiling. We have that policy. Review and audit their existing procedures, practices, and training. We do that. Continued training to address the issue related to racial profiling. We have yearly training. We also ensure that we have in place a citizen complaint review process that is both online or in person. We have that in place. And we work with minority groups in the community to appropriately address the issue of racial profiling, which we have done, and it has been enhanced this year with the Diversity and Inclusion Board. And also within fiscal restraints, collect demographic data on traffic stops, which we have been doing for quite some time. So bias-based policing, I need to move my screen just a little bit here, forgive me. Okay, bias-based policing policy. The College Place Police Department Policy 402 establishes guidance for bias-based policing, member responsibilities, supervisor responsibilities, training, and state reporting requirements. The purpose of this policy is to ensure that the College Place Police Department is committed to policing in a fair and objective manner to foster community trust. Policy 402.2, the College Place Police Department is committed to providing law enforcement services to the community with due regard for racial, cultural, or other differences of those served. It is the policy of the College Place Police Department to provide law enforcement services and to enforce the law equally, fairly, objectively, and without discrimination toward any individual or group. According to our policy, while in the performance of their duties, officers contacting a person shall be prepared to articulate sufficient reason for contact independent of the protected characteristics of the individual. Each time an officer makes a traffic stop, the officer shall report any demographic information required by the College Place Police Department, which is the data that I'm about to share with you. The College Place Police Department maintains an in-person online complaint form, which I discussed. That is one of the requirements. It's on our website, or a person can come, normally could come in person and prevent that as well. Or if they have an officer that they come in contact on the road, they can present that complaint to them as well. We have policies for supervision and review. Policy 402.5 states supervisors shall monitor those individuals under their command for any behavior that may conflict with the purpose of this policy, and shall handle any allegation, any alleged or observed violation of this policy in accordance with our policy under personal complaints. And each year, I, the chief, shall review available data related to traffic stops, including demographic data, existing procedures, practices, and training, as well as complaints. The data will be analyzed for any patterns or any possible indicators of racial or bias-based policing profiling, and included in an annual report, which is what I'm presenting tonight. We do maintain training on fair and objective policing and review the College Place Police Department bias-based policing and profiling policy each year. And we have training each year, some more, some less, but in 2020, our training included implicit bias for law enforcement by Dr. Brian Marks videos. We had to get creative this last year with COVID and not being able to have some guest speakers or travel as much. And in September, we attended an online anti-bias for law enforcement through the WCIA, which was really good training. And then, of course, we discuss this regularly in our patrol meetings, which we have quarterly. So here, let's get into the data. These are infractions issued. So this is proactive law enforcement, meaning I see someone speeding down the road and I'm using a speed measuring device and I stop a vehicle. So these are the individuals recording from those traffic stops who receive a ticket. Other examples of infractions could be seatbelts. These could also include collision investigations and things like that. Most of it's proactive, some of it's reactive, but the majority of it is proactive law enforcement. So if you look here, I've got 4 years of activity, 2017, 18, 19, and 20. So if you take your eyes to the 2020 column, each one of these is broken down by race. And American Indian is listed. We had one contact with American Indian. And I need to point out too really quick, as we're going through this data, a number. So for instance, under Asian Pacific Islander 2, that doesn't necessarily mean two different individuals. That could be the same person stopped at 2 different times throughout the year. So, and that will be consistent throughout all of this data. So we didn't break that down. That's just an example of some of these could be the same people. And if you have questions as we go through this and you want to ask something as we're on a specific slide, please go ahead and let me know. We had 6 infractions issued to Black Americans, 79 issued to Hispanic Latino. Now you'll notice 2017, 18, and 19, it was 0 because the technology, we were not able to pull that data. So the sector system, which we pull the infraction data out of, now allows for us to pull that. And part of the problem is race versus ethnicity. And so under race, Hispanic is still white, but now we are able to pull the Hispanic contacts out of that pool. So that's a big improvement for us that we're able to report on this year. We're pretty happy about that. And you'll also notice under unknown, we're getting better at what we do. And we've had a lot of discussion and training on this. We have 0 unknowns, which is a big improvement for the department. We're really happy about that. So, and we all feel very comfortable with that. 194 out of the 282 contacts were white. So in all, we had 282 infractions issued. All right. Going on to the citation count. So citations are both criminal traffic and non-traffic violations that would result in misdemeanor violations. Again, I'll bring your attention over all the way to the citation count in 2020 on the right. You can look down the line, American Indian 4, Asian Pacific Islander 1, Black American 10, Hispanic Latino 55, unknowns are 0. Under white, 221 out of a grand total of 291 contacts. So these numbers on the infractions and citations are looking really good compared to our demographics. So we're really happy with that. We don't see any outliers or any concerns on any of this. Now this slide.
Chief.
Yes, ma'am.
Back there on that one that said criminal, what is it? Criminal traffic and non-traffic. What's criminal traffic?
That could be a DUI, a suspended driver, those types of things.
And do they have to go to court for that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All criminal citations, you will have a court date.
Thank you.
Does not necessarily mean you're going to be physically arrested, but you will have a court date and you could potentially serve some time at the county level jail.
Thank you.
Prison, but county level. Okay, so total criminal charges. This includes misdemeanors and felonies. And if you look down again to the right on the 2020 count, American Indian 4, Asian Pacific Islander 2, Black American 14, Hispanic Latino 7. Now unknowns are 50 on this one because New World is where I got the data out of this. This also includes all felony charges, so that doesn't come out of sector. And unfortunately, this is where we have still an issue with pulling data on some of this information. And then under white, 330 out of a grand total of 407 criminal charges being filed to the prosecutor's office. This does not mean that people were physically arrested. It just means these are charges referred to the prosecutor's office for prosecution. Okay. Any questions on any of that data? Now, I also include, if you remember from past years, I also include some of the demographic information so that you can kind of compare our data to what's happening in our city, county, and state. So I've been asked before, if you're looking at our traffic data, many times people want to compare it just towards the population in College Place, but you can't do that because we stop people who are visiting out of town. We stop people who are from Walla Walla who come over here to shop. We stop people who are from Milton Freewater who are coming over here to shop or do work and do business. So it's really important to think about that in a larger context. It's not just the city of College Place that we have contact with, but a greater population from Walla Walla and beyond Walla Walla that come into our community. I'm bummed that the 2020 census data is not available yet, but hopefully we'll be getting that soon. And then of course, I also throw in the information on the city. College Place is just under 3 square miles. It's a small area. You can really walk anywhere in the city. And of course, I put the amount of miles driven in our community. And this information is all pulled from the Department of Transportation. I always find it very interesting that at South College in SR 125, and this is 2018 data, 16,000 cars a day pass through there, which is remarkable. And I know it's a lot more than that now with all the movement in the area and the growth in the area. So we have a lot of people that come in and out of our town. So any questions on that? There is a complete bias report that is published. It's on our website and has been sent out. And I'm always happy and open for any discussion on any of this.
Do we have any questions for Chief Tamaris?
Looks like Councilmember Peterson.
Yep.
Yeah, Chief Lauren here. Back on the population, you may have explained it and I missed it. I apologize for that in advance, but there's not a Hispanic breakout.
Great question. This is from the US Census, which records race, and Hispanics is an ethnicity, so it is not recorded on that. And keep in mind, we also report on the RCW, which is race.
Thank you.
And we've noticed that, and since sector now allows us to report on that, that's why we added that. And I think it's important to add because we do have a great population of Hispanic Latino in our community that we want to monitor that.
Councilmember Selby?
Have you received any complaints through the online complaint form?
In the past, we have, yes, but not, if you remember from the annual report, we only had one complaint this year on one of our officers, and it was actually a complaint filed by the department against the officers. So we received no external complaints this year for the first time since I've been here, which we're very proud of that. But yes, we have, and we've received them in person, and we've received them off patrol, all three.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Chief, how many actual officers do we have in the police department?
And including myself, we have 13 plus a reserve.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, doesn't look like it. Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Appreciate it. Okay, we're going to move on to public hearings, which we do not have any on. So we're going to just keep moving on to action items. So the first action item is to approve the chip seal contract with Walla County. And Paul, is Mr. Hardwick here?
No, I'm covering for
Okay.
him. Yep.
Mr.
Yeah, so chip seal, every year we do that. That is where rock and a binder is put on the roadways. Preserves the life of the roadways for about an additional 10 years, and it's fairly inexpensive. We partner with Walla County that has the appropriate machine to do that work. This year, we have budgeted for $55,000 to do that. The roadways which will be covered are in the western quadrant of the community, including Southwest 13th, Southwest Bade from 4th to 13th, Southwest 11th, 10th, and then Puff Lane. We send out proposals for the rock that's used in the chip seal process, but as far as the crew that puts it down, that is Walla County Public Works. This is in our capital facility plan, and this is funded by the REIT 1 dollars.
Okay, let's go through council members to see if we have any questions. And we will start with Councilmember Bobbitt.
No questions. Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Councilmember Cleveland.
Just a tangential question. On Bade, at some point we talked about having the sidewalks put in Just very, very briefly, where are we at in that process? Was that pushed out another year, or I can't remember the exact details?
No, that's actually happening this year. The problem with spending federal community development block grant money from the state is the state puts you through a really long, painful process. So they were busy reviewing our environmental plan. We actually had to file an environmental document to go construct sidewalk. Go figure that. They finally approved that, so we were able to get it out to bid. The bid results are actually due into our consulting engineer, which was Anderson Perry, today. I have yet to hear who actually won the bid because they were due at 5 p.m. today. But that will actually be on the agenda for the next active council meeting in April to award the sidewalks, and then we will get busy constructing that along Bay, Davis, and then 12th.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, Mike, I live on Bade Street, and Bade's kind of been looking rough. A lot of, I say cracks and whatnot, like a lot of our streets. The chip sealing, does it actually, I know it improves or extends the life of the surface and all that. Does it also seal, it goes beyond that and seals the cracks and whatnot in some cases? And I guess a follow-up question, we're spending money to resurface Bade. Really nothing in the, I think in our meetings in the past, nothing really on the docket for any replacement of that street, is there?
I mean, eventually they'll be, but it'll take a long time. So the way we've allocated our, well, first of all, let me get to the first question, which is about the sealing of the cracks. So typically when a chip seal is going to occur, there'll be a public works crew that comes through the street and they will crack seal the road. So that basically fills in the cracks to eliminate some of the storm water and other materials getting through and breaking up the road again. Then county public works will come through and do the actual chip seal itself. And then it pretty much maintains the integrity of the road at that juncture for about another 10 years. When I first got here, Birch in front of my place, that was chip sealed and it's still in fairly good condition. Whereas when I moved here, wasn't so much. So that's that. As far as actually replacing the street or resurfacing that, we do have a formalized program now to do that. However, unfortunately, since we don't really have a direct source of funding to really replace the streets, we try to get to like 1 block of roadway a resurface a year. I know that I'd have to remember what the roadway is that we're doing this year. I know it's not big, but we're only able to allocate right now about $30,000 a year to resurface a roadway, which basically yields less than a block of roadway to resurface. So that is our issue. We're able to get a lot of funds to do federally classified streets like 4th Academy Way, Whitman 12th, Larch College, C Street to Morrison, all of those. But the problem is for these local ones, we're left to our own devices. I will say there is opportunity with some money that I'm going to get into later on in administrative reports where we might consider accelerating some of that. I'll get into that later though.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Nyhagen.
No questions, thank you.
Councilwoman Selby.
No questions, thank you.
Councilwoman Sherman.
No questions.
All right, and Councilman Trope.
No questions.
All right. So if there's no further questions, is there a motion?
Councilmember Selby, I move to approve administration executing the agreement with Walla County for performing summer 2021 chip sealing.
Great, thank you.
Second, Councilman Peterson.
Great, thank you. We have a first and a second. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, it's unanimous. The ayes have it. The motion is passed. Thank you, Mike. So the next item is the fees resolution update by Mr. Rickard and Ms. Neisel.
Who's going first, Lisa?
Mine's shorter. I can go first.
Okay.
So with the implementation of the body cams, one of the things we can thank our legislature for is they do allow us to recover our fees for the time that it costs to redact the body cam footage. And that is a time-consuming process. So just as a formality, it is allowed by RCW, and as a formality, we want to add it to our fee schedule. So that's the only change on my end is adding that redaction price per minute to our fee schedule.
From the community development section of the fee resolution, most of the changes are due to the upcoming implementation of the iWorks program for permitting. So we wanted to offer more over-the-counter permits, for instance, for mechanical and plumbing. And although the proposal is an increase, it's based on our estimated time that it takes to process the permits and actually do the inspection. So when you look at the mechanical and plumbing, that $66 per appliance for the mechanical, that's based on approximately 1 hour of staff time to process the application and actually do the inspection. For the mechanical, for new construction, we're proposing a 15% of what the building permit cost is. That will equate out to roughly about what we're charging right now based on the number of mechanical appliances that go into a new home. So there really shouldn't be much of an increase there. From the plumbing, again, based on like backflow devices and water heaters and the building sewer inspections, those are again based on the time that it roughly takes, approximately an hour staff time to process and do the inspection. And then again, with the plumbing for new construction, we're proposing just a 15% flat rate of what the cost of the building permit. And our estimations are it's equivalent to what we're charging right now. And again, yeah, so that covers that. And then on the roofing, right now we kind of have a complicated process for figuring out, what the roofing cost is based on the number of squares and value of it. And it's often very confusing to the homeowners that are doing their own permits. And so we're proposing just a flat rate of $132, and that's based on basically a couple of hours of staff time to go out and do there's numerous inspections on a re-roof, for instance, where we'll go out 2 and 3 times in one day, possibly, to do those inspections. And the other change is just on the way we calculate our building permits. Right now, we have a very confusing process. The table we use is from 1997. And that was basically the last year that the code publishing companies put out a valuation table on what you should charge for permits. Since I've been here a little over 17 years, we haven't seen an increase. And what we've done in the past was we charged 5% over what that 97 table was. So when we hired the new inspector and Scott Hall took over as building official, I asked the building section of community development to do an analysis of our permit fees. And we found that we were roughly 5% under what West Richland was charging, and also under what the Walla was charging. Actually, significantly under what Walla was charging. So the proposal is a 4.74% increase on our building permit fees, and this will help us cover additional costs that we've incurred by hiring a second inspector, but also just kind of get us closer to what our neighboring communities are charging. The proposal as it is with that 4.74% increase is still 13.83% less than what Walla charges for their building permits. It is an increase of over what Walla County charges by about 9.74%. And that would factor in what we were already 5% higher than what the county was. So that brings us up to 9.74% higher than the county. But in comparison to like West Richland, it brings us even to what West Richland is, and they're our closest comparable city in terms of permit cost. But I think that covers everything. If there are any questions on my end. Oh, I should also mention, actually, before we go into questions, I did make some clarifications in section 4 on most of the planning related permits. There were no increases in cost, but clarification on when a permit fee is due. And also under the comprehensive plan amendments, I added a section that allows the city to waive fees for 501(c)(3)s if they're making a proposal to our comprehensive plan.
Right, thank you. So let's go through council members for questions for either Ms. Neisel or Mr. Rickard. And we'll start with Mr. Bobbitt.
No questions at this time.
Okay, Mr. Cleveland,
No questions.
Mr. Peterson,
No questions.
Ms. Nyhagen,
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Selby,
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Sherman.
I have a question for Lisa. On the video redaction fee, is that per minute of staff time or per minute of video that you have to redact?
That is per minute of staff time. The consultant gave us an estimate. He said to estimate for a novice redaction person to estimate 8 times the length of the video for time it will take to redact it. He said he's been doing it for years and years and years, and it still takes him at least 4 times the length of the video.
That makes sense. I just wonder if we might want to specify that.
It is, oh, does it not say by minute?
It says per minute, but it doesn't say if it's per minute of the video or per minute of staff time.
Oh, gotcha. Per minute. Okay, so we will clarify that it's per minute of staff time.
Thank you.
That'd be a good clarification. Thank you. And Mr. Trope.
No question.
All right. If there's any other discussion items or questions? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion?
And please add the words as revised.
I'll make a
Councilmember
motion to
Cleveland?
approve resolution.
Oh. Go ahead, Heather.
Oh, sorry. I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 21-015, setting and formalizing the updated administrative fees for the city of College Place as amended.
Councilmember Cleveland, I'll second.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, see none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It's unanimous. The ayes have it. The motion is passed. Okay. Next item is a prioritized list of projects for potential federal funding. and Mr. Rizzatello will present.
Okay, thank you. So this is getting a resolution of support after the fact, but it'll allow us to give it to our legislators. So about a week ago, there was a solicitation by Senators Murray and Cantwell to give infrastructure priorities for local governments. Apparently, there's an infrastructure capital bill moving through the federal government, and it's going to allocate buckets of money for water, wastewater, stormwater, and transportation projects. So in consultation with Paul Hartwig and then our on-call engineer, JUB, in looking at our adopted capital facility plan, these are the projects that percolated to the top. So the key one, which has been presented at council several times, so it's no surprise, is the wastewater treatment plant, since that has a large price tag of $20.2 million. Number two is water. This actually combines two entries within our capital facility plan. So in the future, we have that we would need another well out west. The prioritization on that has definitely climbed further since College Place Public Schools is, they have that property out there now at Teal Road. So working with them to get a well up over on Teal. And then also a elevated water tank on the grounds of the wastewater treatment plant above the shooting range. So that both of those projects were grouped together as a regional system improvement at $10.4 million. Transportation is Southwest Majanier. We do have MPO funds to cover engineering and land acquisition. However, we do not have construction funds in hand, so that would be $4.8 million. Transportation is lumping together the two 12th Street projects. So right now in the CFP, we have it broken out by College to Larch to Myra. This looks at it as a corridor improvement. Wastewater, we have lift station number 5, which is on Southwest 1st Street. That really needs to be relocated right now. At the moment, it's this, Paul took me out there. It's actually this little cylinder that actually has the lift station in it, and it's in the middle of a sidewalk, and it's a fairly significant tripping hazard. So getting that replaced at $1.2 million. 6 is stormwater, so Southwest 10th. We had that listed in the coming years between College and the Avenue and the dead end along Garrison Creek. Item number 7 is well number 3. That's the well that carried us through before we had the new well online. That needs a generator and a chlorinator at $300,000. And then number 8 is citywide sewer lining. We have a very long list of sewer line extensions that we want to line, and this would achieve all of that. So as you see attached, I have some of the key flyers for our key projects. We're really trying to drum up the energy for them to help fund our wastewater treatment plant, since that's the largest. The water would be good as would be the transportation projects. But yeah, this has moved very quickly at a fever pitch, and they will take this more seriously with a resolution of support from the city council. So that is what's before you today. The other thing that's of interest is, from what they've told us, this is not going to be like a one-time chomp at the bit type thing. They're going to try to work through the list with subsequent bills in upcoming years. So I'm just trying to make sure that we get in line so we can get help, especially with the wastewater treatment plant, since that one's actually a mandate from the state, because we have to have a wastewater system permit, and that's a very high dollar value. So that is what's before you at the moment.
All right, thank you, Mike. Let's go through council members for any questions on that or comments, and we'll start with Mr. Bobbitt.
Where is Blue View Lane?
Yeah.
for the Majanya Road construction?
Blueview Lane is basically a glorified driveway to a house that actually has a title to it. So it's called, so it's called Blueview Lane. It's just outside of the city limits. The city limits dead end. It ends like right at Blueview Lane. It's at the far western limit of Craig Christensen's property.
Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Mr. Cleveland?
No questions, but my thanks to you and our city staff for compiling this list and continually going after funding dollars that could benefit the city.
Councilmember Peterson?
No questions.
Ms. Nyhagen?
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Selby?
Are we also thinking about supporting or bringing up projects that are in other jurisdictions, but that would make a big difference for us? And I'm specifically thinking of Myra Road between 12th and the highway, where because you can't turn left, it's messing us up, but it's not our road, so there's not really a lot we can do about it.
Yeah, so I mentioned that to City of Walla. For some reason that they're basically working through some funding with WASDOT and other agencies, and it seemed like they didn't want to take that. They didn't want to take room like on their federal priorities with that. So the key projects that they were moving forward in concert with the port is Highway 12 Phase 8, just because that has such a high dollar value to it. That's like the final run between 9 Mile Hill and the paper plant. And then they are at a fever pitch for the intersection at Clinton and Highway 12. They actually want to put like an interchange over there. I've definitely urged our counterparts with City of Walla, at least on our end, we feel this is a priority. It's in their capital facility plan, and they're assembling the money to move it forward. In fact, they did put a legislative appropriation in from the state for it, but for some reason, they just didn't want to take away from the chance to get Phase 8 or the Clinton interchange.
I see. Thank you.
Sherman?
No questions. Thank you.
And Mr. Trope?
No question.
All right. Is there any other discussion? All right. Seeing none, is there a motion?
Sure. I would like to move to adopt resolution number 2021-016, which demonstrates city council support for prioritized list of infrastructure projects.
Thank you, Mr. Trope.
Second.
I'm sorry, was that Mr. Bobbitt?
Yes.
Okay. So we have first and a second. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. The motion is unanimous and it's passed. Thank you, Mr. Rizzatello. So now we're going to move on to our administrative reports, and we have several of them tonight. So the first is the 2019 audit review by Mr. Carlton.
Thank you, Mayor. We completed, the state auditor's office completed the audit of our financial statements. We had our exit interview last Monday. I'm happy to report the state is giving us an unmodified opinion, and they did not have any findings to present. Although they did produce one management letter. That management letter related to the federal, well, let me just step back a moment. The audit was broken down into two phases. The first phase was an accountability and financial statement audit. The second was a federal audit review. as a result of us having over 750,000 in federal pass-through funds. The accountability and financial statement audit came through clean, but we did get a management report on the federal audit review, and that related to how we have our procurement level set in our financial policy. Unbeknownst to me, we are required to have the federal grants listed as a separate procurement item within our financial policy, because there's different hurdle values or dollar values that you're required to do certain purchasing activities different from state to federal requirements, and we don't have those federal requirements listed. So that's what they issued our management letter on. We have taken that item and we did present it last week to the finance committee, and we'll be bringing it to council for approval in an upcoming council meeting. They did provide us some exit recommendations. These are not published items or included with the audit report. They just have some recommendations they'd like us to implement as soon as possible. Can you bring up the report, Lisa? And I'll quickly run through these. I won't discuss everyone in detail unless you have questions. The first one relates to our cost allocation and payroll. They want us to have that formally approved by council. We brought that to the finance. Actually, we brought all these items to the finance committee last week for review and discussion, and we'll bring the ones we need to bring to council in an upcoming council meeting. So the payroll allocation, they found some discrepancies in the numbers, and they want us to formally include this in our financial policy and have it approved by council. The second one is EFT controls. They're concerned about the ability to change deposit information for customers under our electronic payment platform. So they're concerned that we don't have a formalized approved policy in order to see who has the authority or the ability to make changes on that information. So they want us to bring that to council for approval. We do have a procedure on that, but again, the state wants that formalized and a written policy approved by council. The third one is cost allocations. I brought this up at a prior council meeting, and I understand that this is a lot of detail, and I won't go through it in detail. They just require us to formally approve the ER&R cost allocation plan. Again, we discussed that at the finance meeting, and we'll be bringing that particular allocation to council for approval. The next one is A&E procurement. They say that we have some discrepancies between our RCWs and what we state in the policy. That was one that wasn't brought to the finance committee, but we'll be addressing that, and I have to do some review on those RCWs and make sure we're in compliance. The last, there's a CFA preparation in the financial statements. That's the one that they had the management letter based on. And the issue there is we received grant money from the Department of Health for funding our well projects. Unbeknownst to us is that that money can come from either the state or from federal funds. We don't know within the current year how that allocation is made, but the state makes that allocation by the end of the year, and then they tell us what allocation the grant monies received is from federal sources or state sources. Unfortunately, in our financial system, we can only track one source of grant recipient. As a result, our system had that set up as a state grant, when we prepared the audit information, that was transferred into the state database as a state-funded program, but actually it's federal. So that resulted in that mistake. We've created a workaround in order so we can get it reported properly in the future. But that was the end of that portion. The last portion is called financial statement preparation, and there was some small errors they found in the financial statement preparation. I won't go through each one, but all those were corrected in what was published to the state. So why they have them in this exit recommendations when they were already fixed, I'm not sure. But it was my first year-end preparation for the state, so I did have a few things that unfortunately we missed, but those have been corrected and they will not be replicated. So do you have any questions? That was a lot very quickly.
Congratulations on surviving your first audit that way. You're of your very own. All right, let's go through council members for questions or comments. Mr. Bobbitt.
No questions. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Cleveland.
No questions, but thank you for all your hard work on this. It's appreciated.
Mr. Peterson.
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Nyhagen.
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Selby.
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Sherman.
No questions. Thank you.
And Mr. Trope.
I can only say it's more exciting and refreshing to see it the second time.
Well, in your leisure, you can read the actual audit report.
I have enough scars. I don't need that. Thank you. I'll pass.
There was quite a few emails going back and forth for sure.
Yes, and the state just sent me an email yesterday saying that it was published and accepted by the state. So
oh, good.
You can go online under the SAO website and look up that published documents.
All right.
It's exciting stuff.
Yeah. Riveting. Let me had us all on the edge of our seats during the finance committee meeting, let me tell you.
I'll tap on that you guys missed the 10 minutes of the auditor not being able to figure out her Zoom presentation.
Oh yeah.
That meeting, so.
Well, the funny part is they didn't even bring up the exit recommendations in the meeting. So the meeting lasted about, besides her trying to figure out her presentation, it probably lasted 10 minutes.
All right.
It's all good.
If there's no other discussions, no other questions for Mr. Carlton?
Councilmember Peterson, so I'm sorry, that exit, was there an invitation sent out?
Yes.
Did that go out? Okay.
Yep.
You should have got you included. You know.
College Place email.
Yes, it would have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, Lisa would have sent that out, I believe.
Okay.
Or it might have been Descherie. I'm not sure.
Well, they are, and then also Teresa with the auditor's office was sending them out too.
Right.
I believe that one did not go out from me. It went out from the auditor's office directly.
Yeah, it just came from her.
Okay.
So that would have gone to the College Place email.
Yeah.
We've got to remember to forward them to Mr. Peterson on his Gmail account. All right. So we're going to thank you, Mr. Carlton. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Next is the COVID-19 update by Mr. Rizzatello.
Okay. I'll just provide an overview. I won't go through extensive PowerPoints on this again, but the basically Cliff's notes of this is that the health director had a presentation about vaccinations and so forth. There still are concerns about variants and things of that effect. However, because of the utilization of the Defense Production Act, the vaccines are getting here in the state quicker. So now we are at the phase A, the 1B portion, the tier 1B portion. So what that allows is for people 16 years or older with 2 comorbidities, or for frontline grocery store workers, or anyone that's like a frontline emergency worker, you can get vaccinated. There's appointments that can be had over at the Walla Fairgrounds, as well as Benton County Fairgrounds as well. Teachers qualify, as do child care workers now. So we are making headway on the vaccination front. Per President Biden's guidelines, it's going to move to where anyone can get a vaccination by May 1st. That's the deadline for that. As far as the state reopening, right now we are in phase 3. They changed around how they're reopening again for the 3rd time. First it was the Safe Start program. Now then it was the Healthy Washington program, and then it went to a modified Healthy Washington program. So now we're back to reopening county by county, which works out better for us because Walla County, as well as Columbia County, was doing great with the previous plan, the first one that was county by county. But when we were lumped in with counties along the Interstate 82 corridor, not so much. They're going to be evaluating the data metrics every 3 weeks. The next check-in will be April 11th, 12th timeframe. Counties can go backwards to phase 2 if they don't meet the metrics, which have to do with bed availability and then percentage positive of the COVID test. They keep releasing guidance, so it changes daily. At least the ones I'm aware of as of right now is for spectator events that are outside. Those can be at like 25% for larger facilities. For smaller facilities, it's up to 50% outside. For indoor restaurant establishments, they can now have indoor dining at the 50% capacity, so that's good. For real estate, appointments can be made to essentially look at houses for sale and things like that by appointment only as well. Other things with that is another thing that was announced was that with the American Recovery Rescue Plan through the federal government that was passed, that has a lot of allocations for several things in it. There's a child tax credit, there's additional monies for mental health and substance abuse, emergency rental assistance, and then there's also some money for assisting small businesses. There's even a restaurant bailout in it. So for the first iteration of money from this that's helping small businesses, the state Department of Commerce is going to do a call for assistance from the small business community. That is going to be released on March 29th, and then businesses can apply for up to $10,000 grants. Nonprofits will be able to apply as well. So that is a consideration. The key thing within the American Rescue Plan that impacts the cities, which is actually a good thing, is this is the first bill that actually has a local government bailout in it. So the federal treasury is going to be issuing checks directly to municipalities. The information around this is very fluid. So we're still awaiting a contract. I only got very preliminary announcements. From what's been told to me, at least, the payments will be split in 2 pieces. So one will be issued within the next month or 2, and then the second increment will come in the first month of next year. Interesting thing with the bailout money is that it can be used for any sort of expenditure. It can be indirectly like tied to COVID-19. So it could be for PPE, it could be for revenue shortages due to drop off of development and so forth. It's very, from what I'm being told, it's very loose what it can be utilized for. And it's going out to every city, and then also school districts are getting this money as well. So if you look at in the updated ARP WA cities list, and it's AWC included like estimates of what they feel every city's gonna get. This whole thing is fluid, so we're still awaiting the contract to know for sure what we're getting. But College Place is estimated to receive a little over $2 million in this COVID assistance money. Once we get the grant contract, we're gonna need to have a workshop to discuss essentially what to do with. There's ideas naturally, as you can all picture, floating around on this. But we'll need to have that discussion about what the priorities are and so forth to spend this money. But yeah, it's coming from federal government. It's the first time local governments were actually called out in a federal bill. So that's a nice thing to see. But we're still awaiting the contract for it. I made the one comment about the improving roads because technically, in reading some of the articles that have come out about this money could even be utilized for some like repaving projects and things that you could argue were delayed because of drop-offs in revenue and staffing due to COVID. So it looks like it's going to be very flexible money, but we're still waiting for a contract on it. But we know it's there because the actual the Rescue Plan Act actually passed the federal government, so it's there, but we're waiting for the legal contract on that. So that is what we know as of right now. Is there any questions?
We'll go ahead and start with Mr. Bobbitt. Any questions or comments?
Not at this time. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah.
Mr. Cleveland?
No questions.
Mr. Peterson?
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Nyhagen?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Selby?
I heard something on the news about a group of, I don't know if there were taxpayers or what, that were, I think it was attorney generals that were trying to overturn the local government part of the rescue plan. Is that going anywhere, or do we need to worry about that?
From the briefings I have received from Association of Washington Cities, that's a dead issue. That's not going anywhere. So I don't believe it's a threat.
Thank you. I didn't see what grounds they had, but you know.
Yeah.
Ms. Sherman?
No questions, thank you.
All right, Mr. Trope?
Melody got mine, so I'm good to go.
It'll be a relief when that hits our bank account for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to Mr. Zatello's legislative update.
Okay, thank you. So I want to provide an update because, as you know, we have a contract lobbyist that we share with the Port of Walla and Walla County, and then we get updates weekly from him. We're already good ways through the legislative process for this fiscal year. Not as many bills made it out the initial cutoff, so there aren't like as many that would exist in typical years, because this was mainly concentrating around, they were looking at policing, climate change, and then dealing with COVID. So for the initial cutoffs, quite a few bills died. So there aren't a ton of them compared to past years to follow. So I outlined some key ones. The big one, which is exciting, I'm hoping not to jinx myself here, but this is the longest it's actually survived, is the tax increment financing bill. So that would be economic development incentive to help facilitate new infrastructure for developments, both infill and new. And that's a tool utilized in every other state in the country except here. And this is actually now past the House. It passed the various subject matter committees in the Senate, and it's going to go next week. So it's looking good that this will finally pass and we can utilize it, because this would be a big help as the Stone Creek area develops, where we could help with that, and then also Martin Airfield as well. House Bill 1099, the Growth Management Act. This one is a little bit of an alarming bill, but at least there's been some language added that will protect us. What this bill does is it mandates that every city adds a climate change chapter to their comprehensive plan, but then it also mandates that all the cities must have a capital facility plan and a prioritized list of projects to essentially deal with climate change in their community. The initial iterations of this bill were very alarming because they put the entire cost of this new unfunded mandate on cities. With some of the language that has been added to this, at least the state's going to pick up a lot of this, especially for communities our size. So that is decent. And then you can also mitigate some impacts of it if you allow for like missing middle housing and like your zoning code and do things like that. So there are some workarounds where, I mean, the bill for smaller communities such as ours is still a pretty big hill to climb, but at least it isn't like a killer for the organizations our size. So that is a little bit of a rosier picture on that bill. The E2 SSB bill, that is so all cities can participate in the multifamily housing tax exemption. As it stands right now, you either have to be a county seat, a community over 20,000, in basically a county over 70,000, or you can be any city in a county over 100,000 and participate. So this has been very unfair to us, because since City of Walla is a county seat and then their population's over 20,000, they can offer multifamily property tax exemption and we can't. This bill will help fumigate that. House Bill 1333, that's going to extend the 0.09 monies. So that's the grant that we used to help with Southwest Sewer. There was a threat that that tool was going to go away. It looks like it's going to survive. So that's some good news. There's also a bill that would essentially allow you to offer some abatement of property taxes if you're able to attract industrial manufacturing facilities that offer at least 23 family wage jobs or more. That's very similar to a concept called enterprise zones in other states like Illinois and Oregon. That actually looks like it's going to move. Which is good news, because before this incentive was only allowed in Pierce and King County, so around Tacoma and Seattle, and they're trying to augment this where everyone could play in the sandbox. The last bill, which very noble bill, but so some of the cost on this, how it was initially was written, was going to cause issues for local government, is House Bill 1335, so a racial deed restriction bill. So as we all know, back when like subdivision, a lot of the subdivisions that were like written in the 1800s through like 1940s and some in the 50s, they had some of them had like some racial covenant language in them. This bill would basically hire Eastern Washington University and Washington State University to investigate them, remove it off those covenants. It isn't like any of that was enforced because that violates several federal laws now, but some of that was still in there. Why I say the initial bill was troublesome is the one that actually came out of the House initially put the entire cost of doing this on all of the local governments, and it actually made it a mandate for every city to pay for this. So that would have ramifications for all cities. Luckily, in some of the amendments that were picked up in the House, the language has now changed this to a legislative appropriation, so the state's going to pick up the tab on this. So that's good news for us. And then the other thing, cross your fingers, but in the transportation package, as it stands right now, our request for some money to resurfacing Cedar Street from A to C Street, and then damps and reconstruct that from C Street up to basically Rose Street, it's still in there. So if the transportation package does pass, we should have some money to deal with Cedar and Damson, which we've been trying to get through for the last couple of years. So that is just a little update of what is going on in the legislature.
All right, just in case anyone has any questions, let's go through council members. Mr. Bobbitt.
No questions. Thank you, Mike, for sharing.
Yep.
Mr. Cleveland.
No questions.
Mr. Peterson.
No questions. Thanks, Mike.
Ms. Nyhagen.
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Selby.
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Sherman.
No questions. Thanks, Mike.
And Mr. Trope.
Well done, Mike. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. So that's all for the administrative reports. There are some informational reports in your packet for your review. If you have any questions, please contact the appropriate staff member for those. And finally, moving on, is there any other business for good of the order? All right, see none. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Okay, I was gonna say, does somebody want?
Second.
We could have Mike go over some more legislative. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, so if there are no objections, the meeting is adjourned. What time is it? At 8:12 p.m.
Good night.